All right, so our first video has a couple of parts just because each section has a lot of information at once, and I wanted to kind of separate it. I'm not a big fan of going through tutorials for just the Unity editor because it's not really reinventing the wheel. If you've already started your Unity journey, chances are you understand how the Unity editor works. There's a couple of things that I'll talk about that you might not fully grasp if you're struggling with understanding the access and how objects are manipulated, how prefabs might work. We talk a little bit about that. But if that feels like things that you're already super familiar with, you can just skip this whole section and move on to the next one once we post it. But this is basically the starting point of our free online course. So if you're finding us randomly here on the internet, come check out our Discord. We got multiple students in there already hanging out. We're doing the course for free. We have the goal of getting everybody from start to finish and then participate in what we're calling student studios to get everybody together and make stuff as a group and kind of learn more about the professional process of after what you do once you've learned how to do stuff. But to try not to keep this video any longer than it already is, let's go ahead and get started with just working out how the basic scene tools work. From there, we'll move into the rest of the scene view, manipulating objects, getting into each other window, and then talking about building prefabs and manipulating objects in the inspector. So I've re-recorded this beginning part too many times due to fun issues on my own end. So we're going to just jump straight into it. So this here is my layout. Your layout's going to look a little bit different when you start out. It's going to be the default layout. Let me click core here because this is mine. So if you want your layout to look like mine, well, first you need to actually have made a project. So when you guys start up your Unity, again, don't follow along directly. Just take note of what we're doing, what systems we're using. So you're going to create a new project, and we use Universal 3D is what we're going to do the entire course in, is the Universal 3D core template. And we're using currently Unity version 6.2.6. If you have an older version, make sure it doesn't have a security risk. If you have a newer version, shouldn't be a big deal. There was a security risk patch right before we started doing the course. And once you got that set up, the first thing that you're going to see is a bunch of default objects. You're going to see a main camera, a directional light, a global volume. The main camera is the viewpoint of the player. So we have this game window. We'll talk about more about that in a second, but just to walk you through real quick, the main camera is just the view of the player for your game. We'll just call it that. Good enough. Directional light is your primary source of light. If we turn it off, see everything gets dark. We can change the color of lights, things like that. Global volume is something that's new with Unity 6. It has to do with post-processing, something, again, we'll talk about in the future. And then this cube's not going to be default in your system. If you want a cube, right-click, 3D object, cube. We'll walk through that some more later, but this is just on here for me. And then your layout is going to look a little weird. So go ahead and replicate this layout whenever you get everything set up. So what you're going to do, it's going to start with the default. This is what it's going to look like. Go ahead and go over here, do a 2x3. Once you got the 2x3, you're going to take the project tab and you're just going to click and drag it so that it comes out. Post it down here. And then on the project tab, we're going to click on this and hit one column. And we're just going to move things across a little bit, give it some more space. We're going to take the game tab and we're going to attach it to the side of the scene view. And then we're going to have this long boy right here. We're going to take the game tab's free aspect, turn it to 16:9, which is the basic aspect ratio of most monitors, screens, etc. Don't worry about whether you're doing a mobile or a PC game for now. And then we're missing a window. We're going to go over here to Window, General, Console, drag this bad boy into the bottom of our scene, and now it should look like my core layout here. So if I click on core, so you saw the same area. Once you have the layout the way that you like it, we like to have the hierarchy, project, and inspector in the same area because these three windows all interact with each other. And then you're just going to go over and you're going to hit save layout and give it a name. So I called mine core layout because that's what I use all the time. and we'll just jump right into it. So this is our scene. The scene is every single thing that your game world has in it. All of your buildings, all of your players, all of your NPCs, all of the objects that you can think of, all the things that build a game are going to be inside the scene. There's a couple of ways to move around the scene, and we're just going to touch base on the majority of them. So we have the tools here. If you don't see the tools, I believe it is this little button right here to view the tools if you don't see them for some reason. And let's start with just mouse interaction. So you can see if I have, let's see, can I unselect a tool? Cool. So regardless of what tool I have, if I left click and drag, we can select things. If I right click, we can move and pan a camera around. This is not to be confused with the main camera. The main camera is what the player sees, but when you right click, this is the perspective only of the developer's world. Inside the scene, while we're holding down right click, we can move with WASD. So it's a great way to get in and out. And you could also look at it in the perspective of like if you're playing an FPS or got a first person game, you can zoom around your world to see what it feels like when you go through it. That's what I do all the time. And then middle mouse button will let us pan. And then off the top, we've got our main tools. The hotkeys for them is just QWERTY. So Q is our pan, W is our move tool, which we'll show you in a second, and then E, R, T, Y. You see it selects each one individually. So let's start with, we know pan tool, so let's go to our move tool. So the move tool is to basically adjust our items. So let's see if I click on this cube, the move tool allows me to move it in 3-dimension space. We'll talk about the axis and what these colors mean and all that stuff in the next section. And then we have our rotation tool, right? It says rotate tool, right? There we go. Then we can just rotate it, spin it on whichever direction that we want. Again, we'll get more detail about what these colors mean and where it is that we're actually rotating things. Then we have a scale tool. If we click on this gray, we scale the entire thing. If we only want to scale a certain direction, we just grab the direction we want to scale to. And note that the direction that this is pointing is the direction that we can pull, poke, and prod. Look, I can go all the way backwards here to make it go that way. So it's basically inverting it, flipping it inwards. Then we have the rect tool. The rect tool lets us, it basically just creates a rectangle regardless of the shape. So if you see that we technically moved this kind of wonky, and if I go to the rect tool, it still gives me a perfect square to click and drag the whole object based on these corners. And then this last one is the transform tool, and it's all of them all together. I don't recommend starting out with that one. This one is everything all at once, and you can totally have a happy or unhappy accident moving things around all at once. And let's go ahead and reset this. I'm gonna click on the cube inside the hierarchy. Anything that's in our hierarchy is what's inside the scene. We'll say that a million times. I'm gonna right click, reset it, bring it back to a 0 point. We'll talk about that later as well. And now we have our initial cube enabled here in the direct center. We have some snapping. I think I cover it once already, just in case I don't cover it in the other section because I've had to redo this one. Basically, whatever input I have here is how many squares we move across. We move across squares by the pinpoint. So if I move one over, I'm going to land right here, here, here. We're not moving by the edges. We're moving by the intersection. So if you see this point, 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 that's how we move across the grid. Whatever size we change it to is how many of them we go across. It also sometimes will change the size of the grid itself. And then we can turn it off and on. Even if it's off, if I hold control, we can move. And if I let go of control, we get our normal object movement. Let's see. We've got some other stuff down here. Tool settings, draw modes, All this stuff we don't really need to mess with until we get into deeper details with actual models on the screen. We've got 2D. I touch base on that later. Right, I think that's good enough for right here. We've got our layout set up. We've got our basic tools. And we can just move across with QWERTY to adjust those. Feel free to grab an object and break it, blow it up. You don't got to worry about what happens to it. None of this stuff matters quite yet. This grid, anything above the grid is a positive number in positional space. So if I move this object up, you'll see it going up. I'm 90% sure we talked about that already. Sorry, guys, I had to refilm this one here in the last second. But I think that's everything for just learning how these tools work here. Getting an object on the screen, manipulate it a bit. Getting our layout set up. I think we're good to go. Let's jump into more details on object manipulation, understanding the access, and all that other fun stuff.